Have you ever wondered what truly lies behind the pulpit of power? What if the miracles you witness are not divine but the result of something far more sinister? Pastor Goodman was once a man of unshakable faith, a shepherd to a small, struggling flock. But when desperation took hold, he sought greatness at any cost. What drove him to betray his calling? Was it the hunger for influence, the sting of ridicule, or the silent torment of failure? And when success finally came, why did it arrive cloaked in shadows? His sermons drew thousands, his name became legend, but the weight of his choices bore down on him like a curse. Now, as he stands before his congregation with trembling hands, will he reveal the truth that haunts him? Or will he be consumed by the very forces that granted him power? The line between salvation and damnation is razor thin, and Pastor Goodman is running out of time. The price of power must always be paid, one way or another. Now, let us go back to the beginning, where it all started. In the heart of Umons, a small village in eastern Nigeria, a young pastor named Goodman devoted himself to the work of God. He was a sincere man, filled with faith and passion, believing that his calling was to lead souls to righteousness. His church, the Holy Fire Ministry, was a modest wooden structure built from the little he could afford. Every Sunday, he preached to a handful of villagers, often with empty pews staring back at him. The years passed, but the fruit of his labor remained small. Other pastors in the city, like the renowned Pastor Zema, had thousands of members. Their churches overflowed with people, their wealth was immeasurable, and miracles seemed to pour from their pulpits. Pastor Goodman, however, struggled. He lacked money, influence, and the favor of the people. Even his landlady, Mama Nkechi, mocked him. Pastor Goodman, you have been here for 5 years, and you still cannot pay your rent. Are you sure God called you? Maybe you should find another job. Her words cut deep. The insults from the villagers bruised his soul. He fasted, prayed, and sought divine intervention, but nothing changed. The voices of doubt grew louder in his mind, and a seed of desperation took root in his heart. Everywhere Pastor Goodman went, ridicule followed. People whispered as he passed, children laughed at his tattered suit, and even his few remaining congregants avoided eye contact with him. His faith was being tested like never before. He locked himself in his small house for 3 days, fasting and praying, hoping that God would finally answer him. On the 3rd day, hunger gnawed at his belly, and he fell into a deep slumber. In his dream, he saw a grand church, filled with thousands of people, all calling his name. It felt so real that when he woke up, he was convinced that it was a divine revelation. But how could he achieve such greatness when he couldn't even afford his next meal? Doubt crept into his heart. One evening, as he sat outside his house, contemplating his life, Mama Nkechi arrived, her face stern. Pastor, enough of this nonsense. If you don't pay me by next week, I will throw you out. You are not even a real pastor. You are just a poor man hiding behind a Bible, she spat before walking away. Her words burned like fire. That night, as he lay on his thin mattress, a new thought took root. Maybe faith alone wasn't enough. Maybe he needed something more. In desperation, Pastor Goodman sought out Pastor Zema, the most powerful and influential pastor in the region. Pastor Zema's church, the Fountain of Wonders, was an empire. His congregation stretched across nations, his wealth was unimaginable, and his miracles were legendary. If there was anyone who could help, it was him. Arriving at Pastor Zema's grand mansion, Goodman marveled at the golden gates and the long line of people waiting for a chance to see the great man. After hours of waiting, he was finally ushered into a luxurious office. Pastor Zema sat behind a grand desk, his fingers adorned with rings, his eyes gleaming with wisdom, or was it something else? Pastor Goodman, Zema said with a smile. To what do I owe this visit? Tears filled Goodman's eyes. I have served God faithfully for years, but my church remains empty. I fast, I pray, but I see no results. Please, tell me, how did you achieve such greatness?" Pastor Zema leaned back and studied him. Then he chuckled. "My brother, you are still naive. The kingdom of God suffers violence, and only the violent take it by force. Let me help you." Goodman listened, his heart pounding as Zema continued. "Come with me to Ghana. There is a man there who will change your life forever." The following week, Pastor Goodman and Pastor Zema traveled to Ghana. Deep in the Ashanti forest, they arrived at a secluded shrine, where an eerie silence filled the air. A powerful witch doctor named Nana Bokai welcomed them. Pastor Goodman felt his stomach tighten as they stepped inside the dark chamber. Skulls and strange symbols lined the walls. Nana Bokai grinned at him. "You seek power, yes?" Pastor Goodman hesitated, but Zema placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "He is ready." The witch doctor's grin widened. "Then you must be willing to pay the price." Pastor Goodman swallowed hard. "What price?" Nana Bokai's eyes gleamed. "You must bury 77 virgins beneath the foundation of your church." Pastor Goodman felt his blood run cold. He turned to Pastor Zema, hoping for some protest, some reassurance that this was a joke. But Zema only smiled and nodded. "This is how all the great ones do it," he said simply. Pastor Goodman didn't believe what he had heard. Was this really how all the great men of God became great? Was this the secret of their power to perform miracles, their wealth and fame? So many questions ran through his mind. But one thing he was sure was that he cannot return back to his miserable and shameful life. Something must change, and if this is what it takes for that change to happen, then he will do it. After all, other men of God like Pastor Zema have done it and they are doing well now. They are boys in the kingdom and he must join them too. "If I perish, I perish," Pastor Goodman thought to himself. He had made up his mind. He will kill 77 virgins and bury them under his church, and then his life will change. Pastor Goodman stood at the edge of the freshly dug foundation of what would soon be his grand cathedral. The night was still, the only sounds being the soft rustling of leaves and the distant hoots of nocturnal birds. This was the moment of no return. The 77 girls, their hands bound, their faces streaked with silent tears, were lined up in the shadows. The men who had gathered them, followers of Nana Bokai, stood in a grim circle, awaiting their orders. Pastor Zema nudged Goodman. "If you want the power, you must see this through." Goodman's heart pounded. He had dreamed of success, of greatness, of standing before thousands as a powerful man of God. But never had he imagined the price. Yet, the hunger for power outweighed his remorse. With trembling lips, he nodded. One by one, the sacrifices were made. The earth swallowed them, sealing Goodman's fate. As the last body was buried, Nana Bokai handed Goodman a small, ornate ring. "Wear this always," he instructed. "It will channel the power you now possess." The moment the ring touched Goodman's finger, a powerful surge coursed through his body. He gasped, his vision blurring momentarily. When it cleared, he knew he was no longer the same man. The transformation was immediate. The once empty church began filling overnight. Word spread rapidly about the miracles occurring in the Holy Fire ministry. The sick were healed, the lame walked, and financial breakthroughs became the norm for those who attended. Goodman basked in his newfound glory. Every Sunday, he ran 7 services, each packed beyond capacity. Offerings overflowed, and soon, he built mansions, bought luxury cars, and even acquired a private jet. The power he wielded was intoxicating. The once mocked pastor was now a revered prophet, sought after by the rich and powerful. But beneath the surface, darkness lurked. It started with whispers. At first, he ignored them, thinking them the tricks of an overworked mind. But then, they grew louder. One evening, as he admired his sprawling estate, a soft voice whispered in his ear. "We are still here." He spun around, but the room was empty. That night, the nightmares began. He saw the faces of the 77 virgins, their hollow eyes staring at him. Their lips moved, but no sound came out. He woke up drenched in sweat, gasping for air. The visions worsened. During his sermons, he would sometimes see them sitting among the congregation, staring at him with their dead eyes. When he blinked, they were gone. His once powerful prayers now seemed weak. His ring, the source of his strength, felt heavier each day. He tried to convince himself it was just guilt, but deep down, he knew the spirits were angry. He confided in Pastor Zema, who only laughed. "You think you can gain such power without consequence? You must maintain balance." Goodman's hands trembled. "What must I do?" Zema leaned in, his voice cold. "You must give them more." In desperation, Goodman returned to Nana Bokai. "They will not leave me," he confessed. "They haunt my every step." The witch doctor studied him before nodding. "The spirits must be appeased. You must offer them another sacrifice." Goodman's stomach churned. Another sacrifice. He had already gone too far. But as the nightmares intensified, he knew he had no choice. Another ritual was conducted. Another burial. More blood spilled. For a while, the spirits grew silent. But deep inside, Goodman knew it was only temporary. Despite the renewed sacrifices, the nightmares returned, more vivid than before. The spirits no longer just watched, they whispered, their voices filling his mind day and night. "You will never escape." He started making mistakes. During a service, he collapsed on stage, shaking violently. The congregation watched in horror as their great prophet writhed on the floor. Some believed he was under divine attack, others began to suspect the truth. His congregation started to dwindle. Rumors spread like wildfire. Was Pastor Goodman truly a man of God, or was something sinister at play? He knew the end was near. Goodman's condition worsened. The shadows he once dismissed now followed him everywhere. He could no longer differentiate between reality and the haunting visions. Every reflection carried the hollow stares of the 77 souls buried beneath his church. Their silent pleas gnawed at his sanity. Goodman knew he had two options: submit to the spirit's demands or seek salvation. Pastor Zema had warned him, power required balance. But he was no longer willing to spill more blood. Desperate, he returned to Nana Bokai, falling at the witch doctor's feet. "Please," he begged, "make them go away." Nana Bokai's face remained stoic. "You already know what must be done." "I cannot," Goodman shouted. "I will not kill again." The old witch doctor smiled darkly. Then prepared to pay the final price. Goodman fled, the weight of impending doom crushing him. He had only months to live before the spirits claimed his soul. As madness threatened to consume him, Goodman sought Prophet Elijah, a renowned man of God. He traveled in secret, seeking redemption. Elijah welcomed him with knowing eyes. "You have walked a path many have walked before, but few return." Goodman fell to his knees, sobbing. "I want to be free." "The truth will set you free," Elijah said. "But you must confess." Terror gripped Goodman. Confession meant destruction. But was it not already too late? The next Sunday, Pastor Goodman stood before his congregation, hands shaking. His heart pounded as he gripped the microphone. "My people," he began, "I have deceived you." The crowd grew silent. "My miracles were not from God. I built this church on blood." A gasp rippled through the congregation. Some screamed. Others fled. The news of Bishop Goodman's confession spread like wildfire throughout the village. It wasn't long before the authorities came for him. As police sirens wailed in the distance, Goodman took a deep breath. He had lost everything, but for the first time in years, he felt free. The trial was swift. The excavation beneath the church revealed the horrific truth, and so the evidence was irrefutable. Pastor Goodman was sentenced to life in prison. Behind bars, he found peace. The spirits no longer tormented him. His nightmares ceased. And for the first time in years, he was free. Though confined, Goodman began preaching in prison, warning others of the path he had taken. Over time, he became a mentor, a man renewed by his suffering. The outside world had forsaken him, but within those prison walls, he found his true calling. He had lost everything, but had finally reclaimed his soul. The story of Pastor Goodman serves as a powerful warning about the dangers of unchecked ambition, greed, and the pursuit of power at all costs. It teaches us that true success is not measured by wealth or influence, but by integrity, faith, and moral character. The choices we make define our destinies, and no amount of power can erase the consequences of wrongdoing. What moral lessons have you learned from this story? Type your thoughts in the comment section below. We would love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this powerful and revealing story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more engaging, thought-provoking tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Bye for now.